I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame you. I was thinking.
Could not start without her.
Well, this meeting, LCCC Board of Trustees to order. I know all of you have been busy and usually are very busy during the day before these meetings, but now you made the trustees also be busy. We've been at meetings and keeping busy today, so maybe we got to feel a little bit like those people who are still working, although some of the trustees are working and they feel that all the time, but a couple of us are retired. We appreciate the time off. First item is approval of February 3rd, 2016 board meeting minutes. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move. Second.
Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same side. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. The LCCC reports to the board. We'd like to start with Student Government Association. And do you want to wait again and do later?
Yes, I think so. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. We'll pass over you and move then to Staff Senate. Candy Farrell, President.
Okay, I thought I would catch you up on the unsung heroes. And in January, we recognized MEP Architectural Shop and Mailroom, Vehicle Maintenance, and Physical Plat Admin. And in December, we recognized Institutional Advancement, which is PR and Foundation. This month, we're going to make the presentation on the 22nd to the high school programs and partnership diploma group. We also had our new employee luncheon earlier this month. We were able to introduce ourselves as Staff Senate to the new employees, give them a little idea of what Staff Senate is about. Hopefully, we've got a couple new recruits from that bunch. We plan to do this again once a semester in the fall and the spring. So we'll have another new employee thing in the fall, probably in September. And we are working on some marketing information to get out telling about us. We have a brochure that's in the works, and we're trying to get a Staff Senate email. So instead of the emails coming to us individually, it would go to a central location. That way, when there's a turnover in officers and whatnot, we don't have to send out new emails all the time. And that's about it for right now. Any questions?
Any questions? Appreciate your report and
Thank
have
you.
a good evening. Next group is Faculty Senate. Leah Noonan, President. While she's getting up there, we'd say that Leah also represented the statewide faculty alliance to the commission today and did a nice job of not only presenting but answering the questions for them. So thank you for that, Leah.
Thank you very much. It was a privilege. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Faculty Senate has been working on several things, of course, all at the same time. Always do. We have, several of us met with Cindy Henning and Crystal Stratton to talk about possible changes in some of the ways that academic standards is set up so that it could be more faculty driven. It was a really great meeting, we thought. So waiting to see how that works out. Of course, faculty credentialing, huge issue for all of us still. And we're eagerly awaiting the new framework that Terry, there you are. Terry I'd heard was going to go to Joe yesterday or today, maybe?
By the end of this week.
By the end of this week. And that faculty should be able to see it after we have the open houses talking about the faculty job description package, which is next week. And the deadline for submission for comments and suggestions and corrections to those 40-plus pages are due by Friday to James Miller's office. And so we are working on that. Friday, we have our meeting again, and we will be collecting comments and suggestions, et cetera, from faculty who prefer to remain anonymous, who did not want to have their names linked for whatever reason to any suggestions. So we'll provide those to James before 5 p.m. Friday. One of the big discussions was about Dr. Fierro's proposal that was presented to faculty at the school meetings last May. And Dr. Schaefer and I have talked about this, and we've gone back and forth trying to find the actual papers that Jose presented his ranking and titling proposal with. And no one's been able to find any actual paper. We have emails where he lists things, but that's it. And so faculty had voted at that time overwhelmingly to support the ranking and titling, and most of them thought it was as Jose had presented it. So we're taking some of those elements that Jose had presented, and we'll forward those to James for discussion about changes in hopefully the ranking and titling part of that job package. Okay, and we had mostly updates last week. Thank you very much, Dr. Schaefer. It was tremendous help, or 2 weeks ago now, and Terry. We understand the Noel Levitt survey, Leibniz survey, will be out in March. It's what I have been told by someone, not from the horse's mouth, but someone who was very closely associated with a horse, apparently. And
I'm not going to ask who the horse is.
This is a talking horse.
which we are eagerly anticipating. We understand, I'll wait and ask later, someone else. So I'll talk to the horse later. And one of the things that we had suggested was we would like to have more transparency in committee selections, that we would like to have a place online where you can see what committees are currently functioning or are seeking people to serve on them, so that more faculty have opportunities to serve, and that we have an idea who's currently serving on committees so we can talk to them and ask what's going on. So it would be really nice if we had a place like that available online. And that's all I have at the moment. Any questions?
Any questions for President Noonan? You may wish to say something, on the other hand, not, but I just would like the rest of the board to be informed that the issue, which you've heard numerous times about, the HLC and the credentialing for faculty has come up. That was discussed, for those of you who weren't there, that was an item that was discussed by the commission, by the presidents had comments, and I don't know whether WAC weighed in on it later with some comments or not. I know there were some trustees who spoke to it a little bit, but the point I want you to kind of hang on to is this is not something that we are unaware of or that we're unconcerned about. I think the trustees statewide, the presidents, and the Community College Commission are all very much concerned and working on that. And Dr. Schaefer spoke to that too a little bit, and I think we all need to just keep working together and try to work through this. It is a challenging issue for us all. So
Yes, it is. Thank you. And we do appreciate the support of the commissioners and our trustees, and of course administration. It is a terrifying time for a lot of people when you have your livelihood, your career. You may not be able to do what you love unless You can suddenly come up with 18 graduate level hours in that field you want to teach. Maybe something you've been teaching for 20 years. And suddenly you find out you are not, according to HLC, qualified to teach. So.
Well, we'll
Scary.
keep abreast on that. Thank you, and unless there are other questions, appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
LCCCEA, Megan Kelly, President.
Thank you, Chairman, Trustees. Reporting for the EA right now, our biggest push would be to support legislation that's going on right now. Working, as we've talked about before, of trying to be more coordinated with what the commission's saying and what trustees are saying. As far as pushing that forward, the support for legislation for stable funding for the community colleges, and then there's a few other things that are on board there. As Leah mentioned, we're also involved with looking at some of those faculty policies that are coming up here, working with HR and academics and Senate to look at the workload, ranking, job description, evaluation, and make sure that we're another conduit for people to have feedback on those things. I think that's it. Any questions?
None for me. Anybody else? Thank you. We appreciate seeing you this evening. Next item is a work item, and Anne Murray. Good to see you this evening.
Thank you, Chairman
I
Mosher.
missed you all that was out here, but I never ran into you. She was lucky because that might have gotten stumbled over and had trouble today.
Well, I'm glad you had a good day. Thank you, Chairman, Board of Trustees. Here to continue with our series of data bites on our key performance indicators. Tonight, we're going to talk about KPI F, which is instructional productivity. And the first thing I wanted to point out was that this is the first of what we call our efficiency indicators. The first 5 that we've looked at over the past few months are effectiveness indicators about how well we are doing things. Now we're starting to look at the 4 indicators that are about how efficiently we are using our resources to do those things. And this one's on instructional productivity. There are a total of about 8 measures in here, ranging from credits to completion, time to completion, part of the Complete College America project, and fill rates of sections. We're going to focus in tonight on the 3 that kind of have to do with how well we're making use of faculty in terms of scheduling and balancing full-time and part-time faculty. So the first one is our student to faculty ratio. And in terms of definition on this one, it's a full-time equivalent student to full-time equivalent faculty. And we use iPads as our benchmark for this one. So we use iPads definition. And when we report this particular ratio to iPads, the FTE or full-time equivalent is different than when we normally use in state reporting. So the full-time equivalent for students and faculty for this measure only is the same. You take the number of full-time plus 1/3 of the number of part-time to get full-time equivalent. There, so that's a little bit different. We divide it out in a ratio so you don't actually see that I'm using a different FTE, but I did want to point that out. Yes, Chairman.
When we use the FTE, I always think of the 12 credit hours. How does that play into this?
This one is actually just bodies of students. So
Okay.
this doesn't have really much to do with how we define a full-time student or the credit hours that we use for FTE. It plays in a little bit because we do define full-time students as 12 hours or more. So that's the only place it comes in there. Okay. And this measure is one of those that we do window scoring. When we did the report card this year, we added another kind of scoring that seemed more appropriate because there's an optimal window for some measures. On student to faculty ratio, if it's too small, that means really we're not being effective in terms of having maybe more faculty, more full-time equivalent faculty than the student population warrants. On the other hand, if you get too big, then that means we have faculty trying to provide services to and help way too many students to do it in an effective manner. So our target on this is 16, and we adopted that from the state standard for the school districts. We didn't really have any other research on that, so we picked something and that was a state standard. So that's kind of the definition on this one. In the next page of the handout, you see our graph for this one. On this particular measure, we get a B on there. It's somewhat of a raggedy graph, especially in the most recent part. But you'll see a dip down, actually starting in 12-13 was the first time we dropped. There was a big drop in 13-14, and then it went up a little bit. Those big drops are because the enrollment was decreasing kind of rapidly on some of those relatively rapidly, while the faculty was staying stable or maybe even going up a little bit. We added the welding program and faculty to go with that because of some curricular changes, particularly in developmental math. We were offering more sections with smaller caps, so we needed more adjuncts in it. So while enrollment was going down, faculty was going up a little bit, and then faculty kind of stabilized, which is why we got that little uptick at the end there. Any questions on that?
Do we have this information broken out by program areas?
Actually, it is part of the program analysis system, the data that's prepared, some of the data that's prepared for the program review. There are student to faculty ratios in there. So this is one of those. And the next two are also part of that system. The next two measures are both ways to measure how the proportion of the work done by our full-time faculty versus the proportion done by the adjunct faculty. So it's the percent, they're both percentages of what the full-time faculty do out of all sections taught. One is just the percentage of actual sections offered on there, but that can be a little bit misleading on faculty workload because not every section, not every course has the same number of credits. So we've got another one about the percent of credits offered. These are both benchmarked against the National Community College Benchmarking Project. And so we use their definition. And it's this one is actually pretty straightforward. For all of our credit classes, we just total up the credits that an individual student would earn. That's the total credits offered. And we just count the number of sections that actually have enrollment in them. So and this one has the standard scoring right now where bigger is better. But this is also one that we need to look at window scoring in the future because if we're going to be efficient as a community college, we can't get 90, 100% of our sections and credits taught by our full-time faculty. We're not being efficient with the resources that we have. But right now, it has that standard scoring measure. So we need to do some research to see what an optimal percentage might be. So those are kind of the definitions. And then again, we have graphs of the two measures. These are, they're kind of similar. The percent of sections taught by full-time faculty last year was about 53%, 52.66, slightly above our benchmark, and a kind of a raggedy one, but we've gone between 51 and 59% in this 6-year period. So it's really fairly stable. It looks more ragged than it is just because of the scale to have a readable graph. That one turned out to be a C, partly because we went down last year more than, it was a 5%, 4% drop on there. So that's the primary reason this one's a C. It's one of those that was really close to being a B on there. Yes, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I'm just kind of wondering here with the C, and I understand you're using the benchmark for that, but I'm trying to think back. There used to be kind of a philosophy, ideally, for a lot of schools that it was a 60-40, 60% full-time, 40% adjunct. Concept in part being that allowed you flexibility in funding and to adjust for student growth or decline without having to get into significant issues with full-time faculty and letting them go. And so I'm just looking at this and wondering if we have more taught by full-time faculty, in this case, if we were to go up to 60%, that, according to this chart, would not be good. Is that correct?
That would be good. This is the bigger is better scoring. So, and because we went down, but ideally, and I've heard 60% before also, if we did that window scoring, that would be our target. So we would want to get close to 60 and then stay around there, and then we'd be getting our A all the time. So that's going to be an adjustment that I would recommend we make in the whole KPI system next year on this measure and the next one. And 60, I think, is a reasonable target. At least it's one that's historically been kind of accepted. I would like to do a little research to see if that's actually, if there's research to say that's a good size for us. But there are, with aspirational goals, which this would be as one of those dream, if this is what our perfect world is, there's something to be said for tradition, and this is what works for that aspirational goal. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on that one? The last slide I had is just the graph of the percent of credits taught by faculty. You see fairly big jump early in the time frame. I'm not quite sure. I was looking back historically, not quite sure what was going on with that. It may have been related to some of when enrollment declines were starting off, and so maybe if we had overscheduled, sometimes the sections that get canceled are the ones taught by adjuncts because our full-time faculty have a contractual obligation to teach so many credits. So that may be the cause of that kind of bigger jump at the early time frame on here. And then again, with some scheduling, trying to tighten up scheduling and being more proactive on that, it's kind of leveled off a little bit, even dropping, which will be, excuse me, not quite sure why that drop happened there. This one's a little bit harder to tie to enrollment decreases on there because there's been a lot of curriculum changes. We've been trying to be more proactive in how we schedule. Some of those things are being reflected in here. These last two measures, even all three of these measures, we really use as monitoring pieces right now. We've got B's and C's on here. So the college hasn't really been focusing on strategies to particularly move these measures. These are more like the measures that are going to move and become more positive as we work on the effectiveness things and trying to streamline things and help our students be more successful.
And Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I could clarify one of the things, I believe I shouldn't guarantee this, but two things that have changed at least since 2012 that may be creating that downward slope in these. First is the Center for Teaching and Learning. So past practice has been if we hired a new faculty member, they generally jumped in and taught a full load. And now with those faculty that are in their first few years, we're actually reducing their load to put them through the development programs with the Center for Teaching and Learning. So that would be one thing that's already probably taking some of those credits off of the new faculty and maybe picked up by adjunct faculty. But they all are supposed to be shooting for 3 credits of release time every semester as they go through their faculty development process through their provisional status with that. Not all of them have that 3 credits, but that's one of the things. The other thing, when we went through sort of a reconfiguration of the organization, eliminated a dean position and some other administrative layers, we've asked faculty to step up and do a lot of that work that I think they were asking for. At least that was the message when I got here. So we created the department chair structure. And I believe our department chairs receive a release time as well. And then, of course, we've got a stronger academic standards committee that has more faculty involvement. I believe there's some release, at least for the chair in there. And so we've done some things that allows faculty to get integrated into picking up that administrative work that probably has impacted the overall distribution of these credits. And then there's a few things that are happening, with the way adjuncts are being scheduled for certain courses, whereas full-time faculty may have other courses. So you see like in here, they actually a slightly higher % of credits versus sections, which leads me to believe that our full-time faculty are probably teaching the larger credit courses than the 1 and 2 credit courses. But that's really probably what's influencing this most. I would agree with Ann that our target is probably to be in that 60% on both of these measures. And so that'll be something we'll have to look towards. And then, see how enrollment impacts that as we go forward.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask
You
a
bet.
question?
Trustee Little.
Joe, is there an underlying assumption that students who are taught by full-time faculty are somehow, it's somehow more better or more successful for the student? I thought I heard Ann say something like that, like we want to do what's best for our faculty or for our students. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, there is a wonderful, glorious debate in the literature about outcomes associated with full-time versus adjunct faculty.
Okay.
And as like anything, sometimes it's dependent on the person. In general, research would suggest that having full-time faculty will benefit the students in the organization to a greater extent, and for a variety of reasons. They're here more, they're more engaged in the campus, students have greater access to them. There really are indications for it.
Okay.
And I think there's a strong argument for pushing towards 60% and even perhaps even beyond that
Okay.
for that reason. Not at all to devalue or disqualify the quality and the productivity that our adjunct faculty bring to the institution. But in general, when you have somebody whose full-time job is dedicated to this, they're here, they tend to be more connected to the campus and more connected to the students.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
And I would argue that doesn't devalue the adjunct, because that's the mix.
Yeah.
You're bringing in that creativity from the adjunct that you
Mhm.
wouldn't have, but you also have the stability of the full-time that you
Yeah.
need. And I think
Okay.
that really provides to benefit students.
Okay, thanks. That answers my question.
Anything else, Mr. Chairman, trustees?
I'm looking for any other questions, but seeing none, I appreciate your comments. And once again, you've enlightened us. Sometimes to consternation, I have to think about these things for a while, but I really appreciate you providing the insights.
Thank you for the opportunity.
At this time, we need to look at some discussion regarding the nursing to associate degree, changing the title of that. And do we want to start with the interim vice president, Harper?
Mr. Chairman, while she's making her way to the podium to start this conversation, just for your information, this is here for you as discussion tonight. Not asking for any type of action on it. It's simply here for your awareness, orientation, and discussion on the topic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Mosier, and good evening, trustees. I would like to take a liberty here to let you all know that at the Academic Affairs Council today, we did approve both the personal trainer certificate as well as the central sterile processing certificate to move forward as a pilot. So we will find out in the next 10 days whether the program review committee approves that as a pilot. We also approved it to move forward as a full program. So that was very successful, and I'm delighted to share that news with you.
And so Terry, so not only would we have approval once it's approved by the program review, it'll be on the commission's agenda at their next meeting asking for their permanent approval.
Correct. So I'm here tonight to give you a little bit of a briefing on our nursing program and the desire with the request that you have before you to move this from an AAS or an Applied Associates program to an applied degree, or I'm sorry, an associate degree in nursing program. So our nursing program has been very successful. We have over 40 students that join this program every semester. It's excellent. They have excellent course success rates. They have excellent program completion rates as well as job placement. And we know that within the last 3 years across the state in collaboration with the University of Wyoming, there's been an interest in utilizing the structure of the curriculum at the community college level to facilitate our nurses as they graduate from our programs to go on for their bachelor's degree. And it was an Institute of Medicine report that came out in 2011 that suggested that we really needed nationally to have 80% of our nurses prepared at the baccalaureate level. And part of the rationale for that is they just have looked at research that demonstrates that those nurses tend to have better outcomes with their patients, and they actually are able to promote better patient success rates. So over the last 3 years, the nursing director has been involved as well as others across campus in looking at the Renew curriculum, and we have decided as a school and a college that we will adopt that. And with the adoption of this particular curriculum, it will impact our current program the way it is now run. We will go from 72 credits down to 70 credits. That is a benefit with ASIN, which is our accrediting body, because they want us to lower the number of credits that we require for our associate prepared nurses. This program is leveled so that any of the students who are involved from that first semester of prerequisites and then complete that next semester within the program, they actually are qualified to work in hospitals as CNAs. The next semester completion would qualify those students to become LPNs, and they could sit and take the LPN exam. Following the last 2 semesters, our graduates would be able to sit for the NCLEX and be able to get their state licensure as a registered nurse. So with that bit of a background, I would like to introduce Jean Zlomke, who is here representing the nursing program on behalf of Jennifer Anderson. And she can tell you a little bit more about what we're looking at with this change and hopefully answer any questions you might have.
Chairman Mosier and trustees, it is with great passion that we've been able to move this forward. We've been working on this for 5 years in the state of Wyoming. All the way from the beginning, it's modeled after a couple, 3 different states that have done a statewide curriculum. In doing this, we will have 6 nursing programs at community colleges as well as the University of Wyoming articulated in such a way that if the student takes the additional classes the University of Wyoming requires here, within 2 semesters after they are complete here, they can be completing their Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. This is a model that is going to work much better for the state of Wyoming in that the university does not have the staff, nor do they have the clinical sites to provide for everyone to get a bachelor's degree in Laramie. And so this will allow us to provide a seamless path for our students as well as the others across the state to do this. So what we've presented here is the revised curriculum that we are planning on implementing with your approval this fall. Do you have any questions?
Trustee Eric.
I'm struggling with why do we need to do this? I don't understand. Don't we have the capability now for our graduates with the AAS degree to be a registered nurse?
Yes.
To go on to get a bachelor's degree. So I'm missing something here.
Okay.
Why is this needed?
Across the state of Wyoming, in order for consistency within one curriculum, there are associates of applied science degrees, associate's degrees in nursing, and I believe those are the 2, as well as the bachelor's of science in nursing. And in order to have the classes be standardized across the state for this curriculum to be easily implemented and transfer directly to the University of Wyoming as a block of courses, the easiest way to have that happen was by changing the title from an Associates of Applied Science to an associate degree in nursing. In the industry, an associate degree nursing, even though the classes, when you look at the papers, are basically the exact same, associate degrees of nursing are transferred into 4-year institutions with fewer red flags and with fewer problems for students having credits disqualified.
So, Mr. Chair, then there's something different. They're going from 72 credit hours down to 70. There's something changed in the curriculum, and it's to be standardized with all of the colleges. I'm sorry, I just don't see the need for it. But you're saying it because in order to have the articulation with the university, you want to have all the colleges, the 6 that provide nursing, have the same curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's called AAS or an associate degree, it's a rose by any, it's still a rose, right?
Yes,
no.
except for they do transfer those associate
I
degrees
hear you.
in
Okay.
without quite the registrar's
Yes.
office. When you call and ask them, they get this hitch in their voice when they hear an Associates of Applied Science instead of an associate degree in nursing. I was sending a student for clinical this semester to the Medical Center of the Rockies. And they said, what degree is the student going to get this May? And I said, an associate degree of applied science. And she said, oh, I don't think they can come here because we will only let people with associate degrees in nursing come here. And I had to provide 20 pages of documentation to demonstrate an associates of applied science is really semantics.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if we can remove the red flag with the gold flag, go for it.
Chairman Mosher, if I could also add to Trustee Erickson's questions. Also keep in mind that right now we have been articulating so many of our degrees with the University of Wyoming, and we've been very successful at that. In fact, we have our goal by the end of the spring semester to have every AA as well as AS have at least one articulation in place. So part of the Renew curriculum has what that has offered any of the students within the state of Wyoming is that ability to transfer and have that make sense. So if we have a student that starts here at Laramie Community College, then moves up to Casper and wants to continue there, the alignment of the curriculum will make that a very seamless transition for that student. That would not be the case if all of the programs were kept with their variants of the curriculum design that each community college had in place. So that's another benefit.
Chairman Mosier.
Trustee Merrill?
I think it's time for us to align ourselves with the University of Wyoming to make it easier for the school as well as for the student.
Chairman Mosier, is a bachelor's in nursing the preferred degree? Is that what really the goal is here?
The Institute of Medicine wants 80% of all nurses to have their bachelor's degree by 2020.
Wow.
And we're struggling
that's
to
the
meet
push.
that. That is the push, and that's a nationwide push, and it's for patient safety. But I don't ever want to discount an associate's degree prepared nurse. I started as one of those. I'm one of the LCCC graduates. So I am passionate about what I do,
Sure.
so I'm not trying to put myself out of a job. But the University of Wyoming cannot accommodate all of the students to become nurses that we need to have graduate. What we're finding is with our new graduates, they are oftentimes hired, and they're given a conditional employment that they must complete their bachelor's degree somewhere between 1 and 3 years after they are hired.
Uh-huh.
If we can make this as seamless as possible and give them the opportunity to be 2 semesters away from that, when they're done with us, they can still be employed, they can still earn a fabulous wage, and they can complete their bachelor's degree in a very timely manner. Currently, it usually takes a good 4 to 5 semesters after they're done here, by the time they pick up the additional classes, and that's prohibitive. It's cost prohibitive, it's time prohibitive, and really, we all have to pass the same exam. And it seems to me that it would be in everyone's best interest to make it as seamless as is possible.
Thank you.
One other question, not a question. I guess it is a question. If you're going to get 80% of all nurses to have a bachelor's degree, are we going to have more nurses getting that bachelor's degree at the various locations out around the colleges through the outreach program?
Currently, all of the classes that will be required after they're done here at LCCC and the other community colleges from the University of Wyoming will be able to be completed in your home community, wherever, and in an online format. So that was one of the conditions that the faculty that were involved in developing this were very clear about from the very beginning, was we cannot have people have to move for 1 year.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, I mean, that's one of the true benefits of this model is that you're taking a fragmented model that we currently have that we've made work, but you're telling a student you spend 3 years with the community college in your community college district in your home, and then you spend that last year with the university, but you're doing that at your home with that community college in the same location. If you recall, there's an exception request by UW for $700,000, I think, in this session, essentially to help provide UW nursing faculty that will exist in some arrangement at each of the community colleges, recognizing that they're not going to meet that 80% goal in Laramie. It's got to be done through partnership and distribution.
In addition to your observation right there, it's so practical because you're saying they don't have enough clinical opportunities in Laramie. So you're going to spread out those clinical opportunities throughout the state.
And is it, Chair Mosier, isn't that part of the reason that we built the top floor of the student center so that we could also train nurses for further degree?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Merrill, to some extent, the top floor of that new building will house UW and hopefully more UW outreach programs. I don't know if we've gotten to that level of detail and exactly how the configuration here will happen, but we've had a very good working relationship where UW faculty have been spending time in the health science building here. So we've already got that relationship, but certainly down the road, we hope to see more of that UW outreach programming in that building in a much more front door type of space for the community. Yeah. And then, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just as a summary, and hopefully Jean will tell me if I'm correct here, there's really two major pieces happening. One is the curriculum alignment. And that's been going on for 5 years, looking at how we align the curriculum and make the transfer, much like we're doing articulation agreements with other programs, that hard work of aligning curriculum. That doesn't require your approval or the commission's approval. But the other piece, and this is really what's before you today, is essentially converting the degree that you will confer as a board of trustees from an AAS to an associate degree of nursing. And that requires your approval. That requires the commission's approval, and that will require the Higher Learning Commission, our accrediting agency's approval. But it's allowing you to confer a different type of degree for this program. And that's really the information before you, and what we'll be asking you to consider for action at your next meeting is saying we will now grant an associate degree in nursing as the culminating degree on this program.
Chairman Mosher, if I could just add to that. Eastern Wyoming Community College just got their approval at the Academic Affairs Council this afternoon for that same change from the AAS to the ADN. And so that is complete, and there are 3 other community colleges that already have received that approval.
I really appreciate the work that's being done on that. There was a question I had for Dr. Schaefer when I looked at that, and he really alluded to it again, and that is, I don't believe when we set up policy that we have the ADN as one of the degrees we confer. And so what do we need to do to get in step there as we prove this?
That's an excellent question, Chairman Mosher. And as we are in the process of looking at so many of our policies and procedures, we'll just go ahead and take a look at that and insert that ADN in that language.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, thank you for reminding me that I owed you an explanation on that. In such a gentle and nurturing way, I appreciate it. But correct, your policy 2.1 would require us to insert a definition and insert the associate degree in nursing into that policy, and then we would make the same change into the procedural element of it, which would essentially add that degree into a couple of paragraphs. And so once we have your approval, assuming we will have your approval at your next meeting, then we'll route those policy and procedure changes. You will eventually see that policy for your approval, then adding the associate degree in nursing to it. Good catch.
Would you do us a favor, I guess, could look at it that way. I think I understand when you started off and it sounded very good, and then I got confused. The CNA, LPN, RN, and then we've talked about the bachelor's in nursing. So just quickly step me, the CNA, when they've got that, LPN, so on.
They'll have a semester prerequisites, and then they'll have their first semester in the nursing program. At the end of that, the State Board of Nursing allows them to be deemed as a CNA without having to take the exam. Then, after their second semester in the nursing program, there's an additional 2 credit hour class that we have offered for a long time that they take in order to clarify the role of the licensed practical nurse, and they get a certificate as a practical nurse from LCCC, which allows them to sit for their NCLEX for the practical nurse. And after 2 more semesters, semesters 3 and 4 in the nursing program, at that point they would be conferred an Associates of Applied Science in Nursing right now, in the future hopefully an associate degree in nursing. And either one of those would allow them to sit for their NCLEX RN, or their registered nurse boards. The bachelor's degree in nursing allows them also to sit for the same NCLEX RN board exam. And that has caused no end of trouble for the last 50 years. why do you need to have, why don't you have 2 exams if you have 2 different degrees and a bachelor's and an associate's? They created this problem in the 1960s, and I don't have an answer for you because I was not born when they created this problem. But so either way they would do that, but the students who went through our program would be able to sit for their NCLEX, their boards, and become a registered nurse a year earlier than someone who went straight for their bachelor's degree
And they would have 2 more semesters
and have their bachelor's
and they
degree.
could, but they don't need to set for another test, right?
Nope.
Okay, they just at that point have a bachelor's in nursing. Okay.
And I would like to ask a question as well. If they know that they're going to get the bachelor's, would they sit for the LPN exam? Is that a requirement, or can they wait until they go to UW and take that exam then?
At this point, the LPN exam is totally optional. They can apply for the certificate. They do have to take that additional 2 credit hour class regardless if they want the certificate to sit for their practical nursing exam. We have found that our board pass rates are higher if students have chosen to take their PN exam prior to completing the last 2 semesters. And part of it has to do with the testing conditions that they're under. And so sometimes the anxiety that they get when they have to go in and they have to, like almost do a strip search and do palm prints and do their IDs. And it's an extensive process to prevent cheating on that board, which for patient safety, I want them to do it. But taking that PN board allows them to have experienced all of that. And so they're not anxious about the testing environment. And so that's pretty much what our experts have told us about the differences in the pass rate, that it does boost our pass rate. So we do recommend strongly, even if they're not going to work as a licensed practical nurse, that they still go through the board process. But some don't, and it does not affect their ability to continue into semesters 3 and 4 of the program.
Any other questions? And you're not seeking action from us tonight. This was information. You're going to bring this in the next board meeting?
First board meeting in March, so I think March 2nd, Mr. Chairman. And you will have a recommendation for me to approve adding the associate degree in nursing and conferring that.
Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is not in the cup yet. I think we have to work on that, and that is to take a look at women's basketball. Dr. Schaefer, Vice President Hay, and Athletics and Recreation Director Scott Noble. Look forward to your comments.
Great. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, here's how I'd like to proceed. You had the proposal before you at your last meeting, and you heard a passionate case made by Mr. Noble for this program. He is here predominantly to answer your questions tonight, and we'll do our best to cage his passion tonight while we're here. The piece that was missing from the proposal that we wanted to bring for your request was the fiscal picture, the budget picture with that. So in your materials, you have a handout. It's got 4 beautiful, colorful blocks on one side and then a budget on the other side. And I want to just walk you through what this is essentially. And if I get awry, Vice President Johnson, who really helped put this together and did the good critical thinking behind it, may jump in and help me out here. And then we'll open it up for your discussion and conversations. So on the side that says women's basketball incremental net impacts by fiscal year. So what this is essentially showing you, and I think what is of most interest and concern always is, okay, so what is this going to mean for our budget going into next year and the year after that? What are we going to have to provide in terms of new resources or reallocated resources to do that? So in each one of these boxes, they represent a fiscal year. And within that fiscal year, there are 3 different columns of revenues and expenditures. General fund, gift fund, which would essentially be fundraising, and then auxiliary fund for those activities that are seen as auxiliary activities. So in FY16, and what we're recommending is that we ask for your approval now, and that would still allow us to ramp up in this fiscal year, get a coach on board, start recruiting, so we could actually be competitive starting next fiscal year with that. And what we're proposing is that there will be no general fund dollars associated with the startup of this program in FY16. And as you'll see, there's a fundraising of about $22,330. And then on the expense side, where you see the incremental uses, that will go for coaches and the operating cost to get it off the ground. We would have to fundraise those dollars in FY16. So then moving over to FY17, that lovely peach color. If you look now, here's where you see revenues both in the gift fund and in the general fund. You'll see tuition and fees revenue estimated at the WUI rate, which is our Western undergraduate exchange rate. I think it's 150% of the resident tuition. We have a position that is on the books currently that has not been filled. And so the remaining balance of what we've budgeted for that position will be repurposed. That's the $33,000 and some change there. That will show a revenue estimate, or essentially a budget estimate in the positive of about $107,000. Then if you drop into the incremental uses, you'll see the coach line with benefits. You'll see the assistant coach, operating costs, and then scholarships. And so scholarships, offset some of that tuition revenue because we'll use partial scholarships. So in all, next year, FY17, the general fund budget will have to come up with $21,516. We will have to spend $21,000 of general fund dollars to get this going. We also have to raise $25,000 to offset the operating costs for next year. And you'll see that in the gift fund line, fundraising, and then the expenditures. And then you'll see some auxiliary fund revenues and expenditures. Those are predominantly associated with our sports camps, youth camps, types of activities that we go forward. Then if you come down to the yellow box, this is FY18. So this will be the second year of the coming biennium. You'll see in the general fund, those are all zeroed out. And what that means is there's no new impact on the general fund. We're carrying forward the impact that we have in 17. We're not estimating any new additional revenues or new additional expenses other than what we've already started in FY17. Again, you'll see the expectation for raising another $25,000 to continue to offset the operating accounts, and then the auxiliary fund there. So that means our estimate for next biennium, fiscal year 17 and 18, it'll cost us $21,516 to start women's basketball for the next biennium. Now the little green box down at the bottom is FY19. And what you'll see here, so the big thing here is this is the year we pick up that other $25,000 of the operating expenses. You'll see the gift fund is zeroed out. Doesn't mean we're not going to be fundraising, but hopefully we're putting that towards scholarship and other things. But we're saying now the general fund's picking up that other $25,000. But because of the way the allocation model works, the way that the Community College Commission distributes their funds to us, we're also anticipating that those additional 18 students, roughly 20 some FTE, should generate additional state and local funds that will be distributed through that model. Now I say should because that model is dependent on what happens in enrollment with the other 6 colleges. If they all go up, it may not generate that much. If they all go down, it may generate more. Currently we receive about $7,500 in local and state funds per student FTE allocated through that model. This estimate of $99,000 estimates $5,000 per student FTE. So it's far below what we get now, but it is somewhat uncertain. But we do anticipate there will be additional revenue as a result of those students that are enrolled. And so that's the time to then pick up that $25,000 in operating expenses, which essentially should leave the budget impact into the positive. We should have $70,000 of additional revenue starting FY19. So what that means for total, our estimate for the total cost, if you will, on the current fund over that 3-year period to start this program is $46,516. And this approach requires us to get out and raise some funds, but it also really does mitigate the immediate impacts that adding this program has on the budget. And as you heard at your dinner meeting, having those 18 students into a cohort living on campus, the likelihood that they will continue to do what our current athletes do, graduate, have post good GPAs, is very, very good. So that's the picture of what this will mean for an impact to our budget. And there's some footnotes there to describe in detail what I was talking about, the commission's allocation model and fundraising and all that good stuff. On the back side is essentially what the operating budget looks like and what will be proposed for FY17, less the salaries for the full-time coach. The assistant coach is in there. So you could add in the 56,270 or 237 in there, but that just gives you an idea of how Mr. Noble and Vice President Hay have sort of planned for what that operating budget would look like in FY17. And so that, Mr. Chairman, is the financial picture based on our modeling. You've seen the proposal. I would stop there and see if you have questions for Scott, for Judy, for Rick. And then certainly I look forward to your discussion. You have a staff recommendation before you, and I will leave that in your capable hands.
Questions, trustees?
I don't have.
Mr. Chairman, so if I understand this correctly, Joe, to come up with the numbers you have presented to us here, there's a fundraising requirement, right? Like in fiscal year 16, we would need to fundraise 22,000, 17, 25,000, 18, 25,000. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Little, I was in commission meetings so long. Trustee Little, that is correct. It will require us to raise about $75,000 over the next 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. And through would that take place through the foundation? Is that what you're thinking?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, I believe it right now, Scott and foundation staff have been doing that, but essentially the gifts would go through the foundation for tax deductions and then be reallocated back out to offset the cost. And we have some of that already happening, where money's coming into the foundation and going right to athletics. In fact, and in the future, I want to see more of that.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. That's all the questions I have right now. Let me look here for a few more minutes.
Trustee Erickson?
Well, I'd like to make a motion and then we can continue the discussion.
I would second that motion.
Well, let me make the
I
motion.
will entertain.
I just.
The chair would entertain. The motion if
Okay.
Erickson.
That we approve the reinstatement of women's basketball at LCCC.
And I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded.
And under discussion, I think that this is one of the ways we want to see things come to us. A very clear proposal with a clear understanding of what it's going to cost us in dollars and cents. And I want to commend all the staff that were involved in this, because I think it really tells a story for us. We know exactly what we're doing.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, that credit goes to Vice President Johnson for the financial analyses and the work that Scott and Judy have done. And really Scott's been relentless in doing this great work to get it forward. So the staff have really done a fantastic job in making a case and presenting it well, I think.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a couple more
Yes,
questions?
you bet.
So if we just pretend we can't raise $25,000, and I know Scott can, but he's crazy that way, but what if he doesn't? Would that money come from then the general fund or?
Scott's salary.
Write that up and I'll sign it.
He said it.
If I could answer, that money is already accounted for.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Wow. And I want to ask a couple more questions, and this is just because this is gonna this could raise some questions from the public. So I just want to make sure that I have it all clear. So we already have the gym. We already have the equipment, correct?
Yes.
We would need to hire the coach and the assistant coach. That's not a lot of money for a coach.
Yes.
Okay,
It's okay. It's well within a normal
okay.
stipend for
Okay.
coaches.
And how about uniforms, travel? Where does that go in all of this?
Within the operational costs.
On the other
That's
side?
part of- part of our budget.
Mhm.
Athletic supplies are in there.
Yes, all right,
That budget,
okay.
yes.
So, and I read this, and so there wouldn't really be any problems with locker rooms
No,
because you already have all that worked out.
correct.
It helps us. I don't know if financially is the right word or not, but it would help us with scheduling because then we could have boys and girls together. Think so everything it kind of already builds on what we already have with men's basketball.
It certainly does.
But and the facilities we already have here except for the coaching staff.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee
Okay.
Little, I want to say this. So it's one of the reasons why this is sort of the natural, if we're going to add anything, this is
Yeah.
the first step because for a variety of reasons that Scott's pointed out. I don't want you to leave here with the impression that what we will have is ideal in terms of facilities. We still need to do that work, shuffling one sport out, another sport in when the season's, it is far from ideal. It certainly is manageable and arguably not different than what some of the other colleges within our region have to deal with, but we still have that work to do with our renovation and expansion to truly make this the type of environment that we'll want the community to engage in as well as athletes. So I just want to make sure we don't leave here thinking that, well, we don't have to do that. It's still going to be critical, but I think what Scott and the staff have come up with is really a model and a way of getting us there and allowing us to take this step forward now.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And may I ask one more question?
Okay.
So looking at the stipend for the assistant coach and the salary for the head coach, is it your vision that would be a faculty member who then would also coach or just hire just a coach?
Yeah. Right now, it is a coach with additional duties.
Okay.
That's how we are currently structured.
Okay,
And so they would then be given additional duties based upon their qualifications as a
Okay.
candidate. Our
Okay.
assistant coaches are part-time and they are stipend
okay,
at $10,000 as a part-time employee.
okay, that makes sense, Scott. So this 56 is the amount that would be allocated just for the coaching part of that person's job?
Yes, that is correct. and that
Okay.
includes their benefits.
Okay. I don't think I have any more questions.
Trustees
Thanks.
Dubois?
Well, President Schaefer and Scott and President Mosier, I told you yesterday yesterday morning that most people know I'm out and about in the community every day. And all the people that I have talked to ever since the article came out in the newspaper that this was a proposal, every one of them to a person has said, yay, good,
Yeah, me
great,
too.
wonderful, bring it back. Every other college of the community colleges in the state has it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was gonna make the motion. I was didn't get my chance. But anyway, I'm just saying, I'm so in favor of this issue, and I think it will make the people in this community very happy, and I think that will continue with financial support that you need.
Can we have a third second?
Yeah, I'll be the fourth. This is the stuff that movies are made out of.
Other questions? I had one that I didn't see on here, and I'm not sure how it plays into this, but are there fees for membership in NCJ?
Yeah, there's none.
Yes, those are, and if you would look on the back of your operational cost, there should be a line item for memberships, if I could.
Dues
and memberships,
Yeah, there it is,
Those are included in there.
$170.
So,
Okay. Trustee Lou.
Mr. Chairman, why is the number on the back, Joe, different than the number on the front? So this is fiscal year 17.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, it's really apples and oranges. On the front, what you're looking at is net impact to the budget.
Okay.
On the back, you're looking at operation costs.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
we don't actually fold in the revenue on the back. It just shows the operational cost. But it also, because we don't have scholarships accounted for in the operational costs, it's actually sitting in a scholarship budget. They're not going to be, they're apples and oranges really, but they paint two pictures. One gives you, well, what does this cost on an annual basis to run, which is that, 54,000.
Yeah.
But the front is really what I think we're most interested in. And is that, okay, what's this going to mean for our budget? What type of resources
Yeah.
is this going to take? So
Yeah. And this is the part that has Scott's $25,000 out of his salary.
that's correct.
Correct.
I have no more questions once again. Thank you.
I would go back and ask a question that I did at the beginning in terms of when you presented last time, looking at the total athletic program and still coming back and saying, yeah, this is girls basketball, but the total impact on the issue about Title IX in terms of participation. There's two ways you explained that. I would like somewhere, I would hope we as a board would like to look at how that shapes out now so that we know we're consistent with Title IX and we're not moving things in a bad direction somewhere. I'm certain we're not, but it would be nice to see that.
And I'm certain that we can do that through, and I'm sorry, I don't know everybody yet on campus, but our statistical people, that's where I got the 2013 study, the equitability study was from here on campus. So I'm sure that with the impact of this, we can do another study, FY 17, maybe at the end of that, and come up with some information.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Vice President Hay can correct me here. We're also required to actually submit an equity and athletics report every year, and also IPED's reporting, and maybe they're the same thing. So if you're interested in that, it wasn't that long ago, but maybe prior to some of your time, we actually presented that to you at a dinner meeting where you got to actually go through and look at completion, graduation, and all of those things. We do that on an annual basis. Is that correct, Judy? Yeah, so if that's something that interests you, we'd be happy to bring that when we do the next report that sort of shows how we comply with that. And might be time to bring it back anyways, because it's been a few years since we looked at that last.
And the last thing I would like to say, I'm taking privileges as a chair here to speak to that, but I guess philosophically, I'm concerned and would hope that, as we've done with some of the other programs, that we would look to operating with the idea of having opportunities for folks in our community. I mean, we are a community college, and I would hope that we see young ladies having an opportunity who are from this area. Having said that, I would entertain the question.
Brad has a question.
Actually, I don't have a question, Mr. Chair. I just
We want to hear you.
put my 2 cents in. I think, I'm pretty excited about the program. Talking with people around the town, they're excited, and really the unintentional impact that the college basketball will bring to LCCC is, I think it'll be fairly significant. We're talking about potentially 18 FTE. Some people choose a college based on the livelihood of the activity on campus.
They do.
I think we will see some of that unintentional impact, and I'm excited. That's all I got.
Okay. Question? All those in favor of the motion that is before us on girls' basketball, reinstating that. If you're in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President,
Trustee Dubois.
I would like to request that the next item be given to Mrs. Trustee Merrill to make the motion.
Trustee Dubois, at this point, we're going to change the agenda just a bit. Before we talked about increased spending authority for wayfinding, we'd like to have the Finance and Facilities Committee report Trustee Erickson, if you'd like to proceed with that.
Yes, I would, but may I have a privilege to make a comment on the last?
Yes, you may. If you keep it to 10 words.
I'll try. I'm disappointed that we cannot, as trustees, go to basketball games because we're in conflict all the time with basketball games. So we're going to have more basketball games with women's basketball. And I don't know whether there's a way in which we can change our schedule around. I know we can't change the basketball schedule.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, the reason we have Wednesday basketball games is because we did not have women's basketball. This was the hiccup in how we had to schedule those basketball games. So my understanding is because you have just added women's basketball, we won't have these Wednesday night conflicts with the scheduling. So I believe your action actually resolved that problem.
Nice. I wish we'd known sooner.
That's really good.
Trustee Erickson.
All right. Well, what am I doing now?
F and F.
Oh, I thought you asked Trustee Merle to give the.
No.
This will relate to that, perhaps.
Okay. Let me find myself. This has been a long day. We've been in meetings upon meetings. Okay, the F&F group met last week, and I'm in search now for my copy of the agenda. And before we get to the wayfinding contract, let me give a report on all the other aspects of it, and then we can get to the wayfinding. As usual, we had our updates on the buildings, and I don't know if Dr. Joe probably plans to add a little bit more later, so I'll pass on that because of time. We review the financial statements. Financial statements appear to be in order. In fact, they are in order. We didn't have any significant things to look at, and it's been continuing that our rental income from facilities is down, and essentially because we have discouraged having large facility activities at the college due to the fact we got the construction going on with 2 buildings and less parking available. So then we have, that's about all I want to say about that. But to me, the financial reports are all in order. The procurement and contracting report, as you know, we have a new column in there that this is the second time that we've seen it. Potential solicitation of items that are $30,000 and not in the current budget. You all have a copy of that has been circulated to you. We didn't have any questions on that. So unless Trustee Merrill has some additional comments, I'd make a motion to approve the financial statements in the procurement and contract report.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Now coming up to the wayfinding discussion and also the contract that the staff is going to recommend to us. There's been a thorough review of 7 proposals that have been presented to us. these proposals were shortlisted down to 3. I had the good fortune of attending the meeting where the staff met with Tangram, the consultant for this wayfinding project. And the 3 items, the 3 proposals were one, YESCO, another one was Color Ad, another one was BSC. They all had good proposals. Some 3 had good proposals, and they ranged in various amounts. And they discussed, the staff discussed, and I participated in it as well, why YESCO would be possibly a better proposal for us to accept. In fact, we did ask UNESCO if they could reduce their original bid from $653,888. They had a conversation, I believe, was it Tangren? They took the initiative, discussed with YESCO, which is the one of the bidders, and they reduced from 653 down to 3.5% less. Right now, I don't recall exactly how much that was. And then they started looking at the other bidders, what was good with them and what was maybe not so good. The Color Ad had a lower amount, $610,000 compared to the original $653 for YESCO. But Color Signs is out of an eastern state, and the amount of activity that they've had out in the West has been rather minimal and had some extra costs that seem to come up as a result of travel and things like that. So they were ruled out. And then we looked at YESCO again with their willingness to reduce it by 3.5%. We had a very healthy discussion, I thought, about what could we cut. And I, as your treasurer, who I think has a responsibility to have a sensitive fiscal eye and use the glasses very conservatively, was looking for ways to reduce the overall bid. We had some suggestions as to what we could reduce from the bid, a couple of items that would be less necessary. However, the more we talked about it, the more we realized, after my pushing, the more I realized that the concept and the true integrity of the wayfinding needed some of these items that were initially possibly cut out of the project. 2 of them were removed from the project, and that lowered, and I know I'm getting into the staff report here, but that lowers the overall cost even a little bit more. Both Trustee Merle and our chairman were present. Do you want to add anything to that discussion?
I think maybe at this point what I'd like is to go ahead and now have item B, the increasing spending authority. If maybe Trustee Merrill would like to make a motion for the staff recommendation.
Trustee Merrill would like to make a motion for the staff recommendation of accepting the wayfinding. I've lost my whatever. Vicki, fill that in, please. I know you want a second, but okay, I'll say something later. Authority for wayfinding project.
Second.
We accomplished.
Thank you, Bill.
Dubois's effort
Well,
there.
Then you're.
I appreciate it. Now, perhaps at this point, I think Trustee Erickson is looking, and we could ask President Schaefer and Rick Johnson to fill us in a little bit more about some of the issues related to that, and we'll handle any questions you trustees might have.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think Don covered the staff and analysis report quite thoroughly. Trustee Erickson, I apologize. Trustee Don. I bet we could do that quite thoroughly. In the end, we anticipated that there would be, we going back in history with our first bid letting with that, we anticipated that the project would be more. And here, as we go through the second round of bid letting, we knew that there would be some escalation factor for just time that would bring the price up. We did add the 2 new buildings into this bid as well. We knew that would bring the price up. So we already knew that we would see bids coming in that were going to be higher than what we had experienced before. And the analysis was pretty straightforward, looking at which vendor we thought could deliver that was within a manageable price range. There were a couple of sign options that we took out we felt we could do in-house. And in the end, both for a time and expediency sake, as well as Trustee Erickson pointed out, an integrity sake, we felt that we could utilize resources we currently have on hand, either within the plant fund, major maintenance dollars, or year-end general funds to do this project right versus trying to whittle it back further and then perhaps delay and add in additional planning or redesign aspects of it. And so that's what's before you today. I'm asking for your approval essentially to increase our spending authority by $130,000 to do this project, and we'll award the bid to Yesco if you approve that spending authority. And then we'll use either major maintenance or year-end general funds or a combination of both to pick up that difference. Rick, did you want to add anything or?
No, I think everything's been covered. I'm happy to answer any questions though.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, where is Yesco from? Where are they located?
They're out of Salt Lake City, but they have an office in Denver.
Oh,
Their
that's good.
manufacturing center is in Salt Lake. I believe it's Salt Lake, Utah.
And they have some manufacturing.
Nice.
In Denver too.
Thanks.
And they have done a number of activity projects, like they did the Union Station, I believe. In
Denver.
In Denver.
Cool. Hmm.
They've done a couple of higher education facilities, I think in Utah. And there's one other one that was given to us, and I don't recall.
Nice.
what it was.
Thank you.
Trustee Merrill, did you have something else you want to add?
I just wanted to say thank you very much for bearing with us. I know Rick Johnson is new, but thank you for everyone on the staff who's seen us through probably a 3-year project of doing, not doing. But in the end, and I talked to Rick about this at dinner, I want to make sure that there's a Ludden Library open house. And I'm hoping that the people, it's out on the marquees. I'm hoping the people that kind of arrive at this college will know how to find the Ludden Library, because just seeing that on the signs right now, I won't know where it is. I know where it is, but the person from the community might not be able to find their way. And that's what I'm hoping will improve with new wayfinding.
And Mr. Chairman, Trustee Merrill, I believe can't guarantee that everybody will always find their way on campus, but compared to what we have now, will be a significant improvement to what we're doing. And while I'm speaking, I want to point out that there are people on this campus. Certainly Rick has put in a lot of time and needs to be commended for his efforts on this. If you see Tim McNamara at any time, bow to his feet, give him a kiss, give him a hug, because he is doing yeoman's work with all of this. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, but I also want to point out your legal counsel, who really has helped us navigate this whole process. And without her, we probably would still be chewing on it for another year trying to figure it out. So it was a great team effort, and you've got some wonderful folks working for the college that have made this happen. And I think we have the right solution here. I think it's going to really create a significant improvement on campus wayfinding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I need to just say one other thing. Since this is a project that started before my arrival on the board, I think it was important for me to recognize that cutting back on the scope probably was not appropriate, even though I think it's important for us to reduce our costs as much as we can, and so that we have our pocket of extra money not extra money, but our monies that we have to either reallocate or that we have in reserve for those things that are in flux. I came around to the point that, hey, with the integrity of what you wanted to accomplish, this board wanted to accomplish before I arrived, I thought that that should be maintained. So I feel much better with myself and justifying about, what is it, $130,000 over what was originally budgeted.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Question? All those in favor of the motion to accept the wayfinding project bid, please signify by saying aye.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's to increase spending authority, not accept a bid.
Stand corrected.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure
I
we're voting on the right
appreciate
thing.
that.
Okay.
To increase spending authority, Vicki would have covered for me.
Well,
Yeah,
then do we
I
not, then that's a good point. Do we not need to indicate that to increase the spending authority and to award the bid to Yesco? No?
No, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, what we need is your authority to spend additional
That's
funds,
all.
and then we will award the bid.
Okay, the motion. The Board of Trustees approves an increase in spending authority for the campus wayfinding project, increasing this authority from $475,000 to $605,001. And all those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my job now is to figure out what that $1 is going to.
I wanted to ask. $1, okay. Now we're, Trustee Erickson, did you?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You told me it has to tell you. It says approved. Do we have to? Which one? The financing facility.
Oh, we did that.
We didn't approve.
Yep.
Don just
Yes.
gave the report.
No, we had a motion to approve it. Yeah.
It was very quick.
I must have been in another room.
Getting really good at it. We're very good.
Sorry, I didn't know we approved it, Don. We knew we had to.
Okay, that's because we did them out of order. That's what messed you up there. Okay, next item is President's report, and if you would share with us, President Schaefer, an update on construction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I will go quick here. As always, you have a standing construction update in your packet. If you have questions, I'm sure Vice President Johnson or others can answer those questions. Projects are moving along well. Outside the wind and some goofy weather, we really have been fortunate. Just so you know, too, we have a tour planned of the Flex Tech building on April 6th. So we'll actually before dinner get you through there and get to see, and they're really starting to make some great progress on that project. The quick legislative update attached to the materials with your agenda. You have probably what I think is the most significant piece of legislation we're tracking right now, and that's House Bill 80. It's predominantly sponsored by Representative Greer out of Worland, who's done, he's to be commended for the work he's done in really trying to understand and follow community college funding and the issue we've been struggling with. So this bill is essentially the community college recalibration bill. It resets the base with the governor's recommendation. For this year, we would recalibrate. Then going forward, starting next biennium, then every 4 years, and essentially gives us that stability that we've been asking for. There are pieces in there that aren't perfect. Some things will have to be spelled out in rules. There are some changes that could impact our overall funding initially, and we'll have to see how that works. One is that it would actually weight distance learning courses, online courses at 0.8. Right now, they're basically weighted at 0.1 with the way the allocation model works. So they would actually be slightly devalued. Interestingly enough, through cost modeling, it's not far off, although I think we're closer to 0.9. but it's not far off from what we believe that the overall cost of a distance learning course is compared to all modalities. It does shift the weighting. Right now we have weighted courses, level 1, level 2, and level 3. 1 being a lecture class, 2 being a lab type class, science lab, 3 being sort of equipment heavy, high tech class, one of the auto shop classes. Level 1 courses receive a weight of 1, level 2 receive a weight of 1.5, level 3 receive a weight of 2. This legislation, and it gets more confusing than that, I won't go into it, but this legislation essentially makes them a 1, 1.25, and 1.5. Well, what that means when the allocation happens is that you'll see the increase in those costs start to push disproportionately, where a level 1 could see a larger increase in additional revenue, a level 2 smaller, and a level 3 smaller. All should go up because of the way they're compressing. What it means is that for campuses that have a significant number of level 2 and level 3 courses, science labs and other labs, is we could actually see a reduction in funding allocation as a result of the compression of that weighting. Now, again, that's contingent on what happens at the other campuses. If we all have a pretty similar distribution of those courses, it may not make any difference. But if there are other campuses that have more level 1s, it could make a difference in what we would allocate with that. And so those really are the primary pieces of the legislation that we may want to watch and would have some concerns over. In general, though, it provides stability. It allows for a recalculation of a base every 4 years instead of us constantly going back to 2004 and looking at enrollment there. Those adjustments would go to the base. Now, if enrollment goes down, though, then the state funding would go down with it. So that's the other piece that's always tricky with it. But I think it provides the predictability that we really, really wanted. It has made it now through first reading in the House, as I understand it, tonight. Hopefully it will get out of the House. It's got to get out of there by Friday. So hopefully it should get through second and then possibly third tomorrow or on Friday, and then get to the Senate. It does sound like once it hits the Senate, if it gets over there before they meet that deadline, it could be amended. I mean, I think there's going to be some monkeying with it. So it's certainly not out of the water by any means yet, but we're tracking it. There is one amendment. I provided a copy of that as well. And that amendment was just clarifying language by the Revenue Committee, and really don't see any major difference or change with it. And so that's the big piece. Everything else going on is, sort of a flurry of budget amendments that are, either trying to further cut or add back what the Joint Appropriations Committee did. And then a variety of other bills that we're just trying to track, ranging from repeal of portions of the gun-free zone law to some of the Hathaway things. And so I probably can't give much more of a detailed update than that. Trustee Barker may be able to give some update on the Hathaway conversations and the bills there, and other trustees may have an update as well. So I'll pause there to see if there's Trustee Barker.
Mr. Chair, there were 3 Hathaway bills this year. 2 of them died so far. One is just passed the Senate, Senate File 15, and that bill, in a nutshell, takes out the ACT language and moves into what's called equipercentile, is how the language reads, and it'll be a very complicated. We haven't fully worked out the details, but initially it'll be percentile based, as far as instead of having a set ACT standard, we'd have to, from year to year, there would be a change in the percentile. So students would be based off a national standard, potentially. But those details would be worked out if that bill moves over, if it gets signed. So.
A question for you that concerns me, the Hathaway bill that would have increased the funding died, and doesn't look like there's any opportunities to get any of that funding back, because that's significantly down if you look at the increases out there in costs.
Yeah, right now, just in terms of the honors level at UW, I think it covers about 69%. So that's the highest level pathway. Which originally it covered, I think, around 92% during the inception. first year of Hathaway. So that's been that's usually what we get around the state is it's not keeping up with costs. And right now the honor still covers, I think, majority of the tuition here at the community colleges, but it's still definitely decreasing. Or the gap is increasing, if you will.
Okay. Any other trustees have comments on any other legislation? Okay.
We'll keep you posted as we go. Mr. Chairman, the last piece I have in your materials is my proposal for some modifications to our spring board meeting dates. So you should have within there a calendar. It's got some lovely calendar starting in March, some lovely colors on there. March essentially is keeping things as are. You'll have a meeting on the 2nd and a meeting on the 16th. Green boxes mean those are the currently scheduled meetings. Yellow would be proposed. When we get into April, we'll have an April 6th meeting as planned. On April 20th, though, I am supposed to be participating in a conference that the Western Interstate Commission on Higher Education, WICHE, is putting on, and I'll be speaking there on the 21st, which means I will have to be on an airplane at least on the 20th. And possibly earlier. So what I'm asking is if we can cancel that. Originally, I had thought about proposing to move it to the 27th, but that's also the night of the SOAR banquet, the student organization banquet, and it's really wonderful if the trustees that are available and the staff are there to do that. So I would propose canceling the 20th altogether. And then when we get into May, I'm recommending moving your board meeting that was on the 4th to the 11th, the one on the 18th to the 25th, essentially shifting 2 weeks for a couple of reasons. First is it gives Jane and Rick an additional week to prepare for your first reading of the budget. That's due right now. It's scheduled for May 4th. Moving to the 11th allows that one extra week to get the budget information together for your first meeting. Then we go to the 25th, which would be before Memorial Day. And then in June, it actually would bump your June 1st meeting to the 8th. There's 5 Wednesdays in June. The way it's currently scheduled, you would have a meeting on the 1st, and then you'd have, those 4.5 weeks before you would get to the 29th. The 29th is where we will be bringing a budget for you to approve. So we'd bring an update to you on the 8th and then have you approve it on the 29th. The other thing, as I understand it, is that with the conversation day at the commission meeting may now be moved to Casper on June 1st to accommodate and align with the GISS, which I think is on the 2nd and 3rd. Does that sound correct?
That's correct.
So if we had a board meeting on the 1st, we wouldn't be able to participate in the commission meeting. And so overall, I think these adjustments work. They still keep at least the 2-week period within your meetings and seem to be workable for staff and hopefully for the board. But I wanted to bring that here for your consideration because I certainly don't know what all your schedules are and if that complicates things.
I would just point out too that I think that helps a bit. In April, the commission meeting is on the 22nd, and we'd have a WAC meeting on the 21st. I'm not sure the location of that one. Is that Western?
Rock Springs.
Rock Springs, yes. So if that's in Rock Springs, that kind of, we don't have the board meeting the night before, then I have to travel. I know we've done that, but this kind of makes that a little bit better if we don't have a meeting.
Good point. That's good. So, Mr. Chairman, that's there. We can certainly make those adjustments if you're good with those and proceed. When I say we, I mean Vicki, of course, can make those adjustments. And I want to make sure you're okay with, at this point, canceling the 20th. I don't foresee anything major that we had planned to come forward on the 20th that we couldn't handle on the 6th or that first meeting in May on the 11th.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Erickson.
Generally, I'm not much for canceling meetings, but given the reason and also the difficulty for having a meeting on a date other than a Wednesday, I think this makes some sense, and it doesn't bother me. We don't need a motion, do we? You just want to get a consensus.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, if I hear dissent, then we'd keep digging, but I'm not hearing that. And I believe Trustee Du Bois is also out of town on April 20th. So
As am I, so it works out.
great.
And keep in mind, on March
We wouldn't have a quorum.
19th, we do have the retreat scheduled, right?
Yes, so that's the 20th. So on March 19th, on Saturday, March 19th, we do have a retreat scheduled from 10 to 2.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Barker?
so with that said, I mean, is it necessary to have a board meeting on the 16th? I don't want to, I'm all for efficiency, and I just don't have a meeting just to kind of chit chat with one another personally.
I would look at.
I mean, and that's what I'm asking. If there's something there that's pertinent, I mean, let's do it. But if not, if we could pack it into the 2nd or the 19th, let's do that.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Barker, we could certainly do some business if need be on the 19th. We just have to make sure we notice that, but we do that normally anyways. We'll have some things for you on the 2nd. I can't think of anything on March 16th. I can certainly take a look at it, but I don't believe staff would have any qualms with canceling that and meeting on the 19th. And if that works for the board, what I might suggest is let us look into it and just confirm that would be doable. And then I can send out a note. And
Mr. Chair, I like to then readdress my earlier comment about generally, I think we should have our meetings, our 2 meetings. I think there's plenty of things that we can do in our own learning and also in the work agenda, even though we don't have an approval item. So I would speak against canceling additional meetings.
And in effect, retaining the 19th.
Yes.
Or excuse me.
16th.
Whatever the date is.
The 16th, yes.
given that, Mr. Chairman, I think you may need to act on that and come. I have 2 competing recommendations, so we can accommodate both. There's merit, I would say, in both. So you can take no action and leave it as is.
Trustee Du Bois.
Well, frankly, I don't care one way or the other, but I do want, does Vicky always announces when we're having meetings? So a meeting is announced, like on the 19th.
Yes.
Could we do business if there was some business items on the 19th?
Certainly.
What's kind of the feeling? We've heard Trustee Erickson, and those comments are well taken. I like to think that we don't want to not be meeting. I kind of lean in this case, so it's the 19th, we're doing a retreat. If there are some things there that could be beneficial, we could do then, but I'm going to split there.
Mr. Chairman, what is the plan for the retreat on the 19th?
We're just going to meet and have ice cream. No. I'm going to look to the president to help a little bit. My mind's gone blank at this point in the day. I know what I've been thinking and what we've talked about, but it's gone at the moment.
Mr. Chairman, we need to keep looking around the table. I know that one of the things you wanted to discuss was just budget picture and getting a look at short-term, long-term based on the legislative outcome. I think that was one piece. You certainly have a variety of other things that have been in the works, such as the conversation about a standing committee, perhaps on evaluation and so forth. Other than that, I think I'm drawing a blank as well. And
the first part I remember back to that we wanted to do that. And I think out of that kind of evolved the idea that I think this will help us too. Maybe Don, you could tell us, but thinking a little bit about maybe how the June meeting with GISS plays into this. We might begin to look at what we need to do in preparation for that. And when I think about the budget, I really think seriously that that's a time for us to think about where the college is going, not just numbers, but think about what trustees have in mind, along with what Joe shares with us, and solidify that so that we move the budget in the direction to meet those objectives.
Well, I understand Brad's suggestion, but I think if we're going to have a retreat, then it should be a retreat.
And stay away from the business.
If it's stuff if the retreat is stuff we can do in business, then let's not have a retreat. You know, if they're two different things, then we don't need to, like Brad said, waste our time. But if we're talking about, but if they have two different characters, then that's different.
I think my feeling is we stay with the March meeting. I do agree that there are things that we need to get done. I think maybe it doesn't have to be a long meeting. Who said we need to have meetings that go till 9 o'clock at night? It could be very functional to serve that. So let's stay with the meetings as scheduled for the 16th and the retreat on the 19th.
And maybe we can conscientiously try to keep the meeting on the 16th short.
We won't fatten that agenda, okay?
And I want to mention again that I will not be here at either of the meetings except for the retreat in
Okay. Right.
Roll track.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report, unless you have other questions of me.
No. I do not. Any other board members? Okay. We're into board reports, and this is time for me to ask Trustee Erickson and Trustee Barker to share with us some of the comments. I don't know how you guys want to share for both the commission meeting and the WAC meeting, so I'll let you.
We discussed this ahead of time, Trustee Barker and I, and he asked me to take the lead and he would chime in. However, given the timing right now, and there are two reports that are going to be lengthy, I'm going to suggest that we defer these reports to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Except for one comment that I'm going to make. No, I'm going to defer to the next meeting, both reports. If that's okay with the rest of the group.
This with me. Others.
Just to help you, there's quite a bit of substance from the Community College Commission. I mean, substantial. There's also quite a bit from the WAC board meeting. So, and I would think it's going to take at least a half hour to cover both of those.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, I would agree with you. I think we need to spend some time, and actually some of the conversation from the commission meeting specifically pertaining to tuition would be a very fitting component of the retreat on the 19th. I don't anticipate they will move on it before then. So I think that would be a fitting topic, and maybe some of that could be covered in there as well.
Is that all right with you, Brad?
Sure. Okay, in terms of the WAC conference for tomorrow, I do want to comment on that, and I would hope that Trustee Barker Erickson would chime in here, since I left the meeting a bit early, but we start tomorrow morning at 9, and that's here on campus. We have lunch in the training center, that's room 120, and then we have time at the legislature, and then 5 o'clock. Little America for the WAC awards, and at 6:30 for the reception for the folks, along with legislators. Hopefully they will maybe have their work done so they can come join us. The governor is not able to join us this time, at least that's what
That's correct. However, the other 4 state elected officials will.
So, and she indicated, I believe, and help me a little bit on this, Don, that there's numerous other groups that we have partnerships with, along with industry, that will be there. So it's a chance to visit with our partners out there who are seeking similar kinds of interests in terms of government. So,
are you talking about the reception, Ed?
Yes. Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you are interested, for those of you that will be there, depending on who shows up from our delegation, I would be more than happy to provide you with some conversation starter pieces for them. If you're at all interested, I could email you some thoughts on that.
Please. Thank you.
Would very much appreciate that. That's all I have on that. And of course, we've already done finance and facilities and passed on those items. Ex officio updates. Trustee, ex officio, Butch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we've, I think Dr. Malm has said that we're in session. We started our 14-week block, I understand. We're up just a little bit based on last spring semester, I think about 0.7 is it, to be exact, as far as enrollment goes. So we're in swing. Might talk a little bit about the Albany County School District a little bit. They did go ahead and purchase the land right adjacent to us, just south of us. And I think it's around 840,000 is what the city accepted. And so the Albany County School District now owns that land. They have no immediate plans for it presently. In fact, Dr. Malm and myself have had some discussion already with administration and school board members about possibly looking at opportunities, maybe in doing something in the dual enrollment with the high school in LCCC. Dr. Malm had said that, in fact, on March the 2nd, I think, they're going to have a meeting between LCCC and the high school administration to look at maybe the automotive program. Apparently, the faculty member that the high school has now will be retiring in spring, and that maybe we could provide an adjunct faculty member to teach automotive in their brand new automotive classroom space that the high school will open up next August, September. Now, would we maybe be able to teach high school students, but then give us opportunities to teach maybe those enrolled at the community college and maybe other community type folks in Laramie. So I think there's some opportunities maybe to really explore in the dual enrollment area, especially with the new high school in the Albany County District. We even talked a little bit about maybe BOCES once again might have another, get some more traction this time, doing something there, especially as we're all talking about dual enrollment. So, so I think those are some pretty good events. I also think that our long-term planning with regards to Crystal Court, the parcels on Crystal Court makes a lot of sense as well, as we talked about during our last board meeting or two, that maybe that's more on a long-term and maybe on a more of a short-term basis, we might have some opportunities with the Albany County School District to do some dual enrollment stuff. Tomorrow night, unfortunately, we'll not be able to attend the reception and so forth at Little America, but actually Laramie has their annual Chamber Business Alliance meeting. And each year, in the last several years, my business and LCCC has sponsored a table. And so Dr. Schaefer and his wife attended last year to this event. So we're going to go this year. And in fact, Dr. Malm he and his wife, and then he's also invited two of the school student leaders to attend to this event. And so I think that's a great choice as well. And then we'll have a couple business people that were on our table. Some of the companies that Laramie has attracted in the last year, we've kind of reached out to them, and they're going to be involved a little bit. So hopefully the college again might pursue some possible training programs for new business. So some things that are happening over the hill. And if you have any questions, Dr. Malm he's kind of filling me in, but he'll have more obviously detail on the discussions he's having with the Albany County administration and dual enrollment and automotive classes and stuff. So,
any questions? Thank you. Appreciate your report. It's good to see you over here. And last time the snow kept you away.
Well, that was the word.
Anyway, well, I'm sorry you won't be able to join us tomorrow night, but I'm sure there'll be good things happening over there at that business function.
Mr. Chair, can I just make one comment? I think it's just tremendous to see from your report and also from previous reports, the interaction of the Albany County campus with the community and with the school district and with the city of Laramie. I mean, it's just very stimulating to see that interaction. Also, I want to thank Trustee Butch for his continuing vigor in being attentive and staying with this and coming and visiting with us and giving us the report. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Trustee.
Noah. Trustee Noah, we're ready to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we just finished up the interviews for the 2 open senator positions in SGA. There were 6 applicants, and the interviews were consisted of the executive board plus other senators that wanted to join us at that time. And we will be deciding that tomorrow at our meeting on which 2 we will be accepting. And also SVAC, that committee is getting put together. We're trying to get representatives from each school. And so they're really just kind of trying to get their schedule organized on when they can do that. And that is all I have to report.
When you say representatives from each school, are we talking about students coming from each of those schools, or are you talking about?
I'm sorry, within SGA, like from each, have an SGA senator or member from each school in that committee. Right. So.
Right. Any other questions? Thanks, Noah. New business. Just a couple of quick things that relate to the commission. Just keep your ears open. There is a bill out there, according to the chairperson for the Community College Commission, that will change the makeup on commissions, not just the Community College Commission, but that makeup. Remember, many of those nonpartisan are in a way partisan. They are allowed to have 5 Democrats, for example, on a 7-member board and 4 of the others. But this bill, I think, speaks to having 75% of one party or the other. So just however your feelings are on that, be aware of that. Plus, related to that, there are, I believe, potentially 3 commissioners who in February terms will be ending. Charlene Bodine, I talked to her a little bit today. She may or may not, depending on a couple of personal issues, resign. If she does, then of course there's a spot there. And I was pretty certain Lovercheck is in question. I think she's turned out, and there's somebody else, and I forget who that is. But point is, we as trustees, and I think we should share it with our board members, WAC board members, that I think they ought to be active in seeking some good participants on that commission, and think about maybe recommendations that might be made from WAC or something to the governor. And having said that, Carol, I think you had
public comment.
Wait a minute. I jumped ahead of myself here. Any public comment? Hearing none. Trustee Merrill.
I'd like to make a motion for adjournment to an executive session for a personnel matter.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
What'd you say?
A little weak.
Pretty weak. What's pretty
Are we
weak?
calling your decision of the House? We'll reconvene in 10 minutes. 5 minutes? Think we can do it? That's kicking people out. We'll try to reconvene at in 5 or 10 minutes. 15 past. Give them a chance.
What time?
At